This is Support is Sexy, episode 325, with Kylie Carr, CEO of the Asbury Group. Welcome to Support is Sexy. I'm your host, Elaine Fluker, entrepreneur, author, and founder of Chic Rebellion Media. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, I interview inspiring women entrepreneurs who share their wins and their lessons to help you take your business and your life to the next level and create something sexy. Here we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Support is Sexy. I'm happy to have you here. You know, it just would not be the same without you. And if you're ready to make a bold move in your business or in your personal life, but you feel like you need a little help coming up with a solid plan, I want you to go to makebravedecisions.com and check out my free course on how to make brave decisions. That's makebravedecisions.com. Now, today I am super excited to welcome our guest, my friend, Kylie Carr. Kylie and I have gotten to know each other, I guess, over the past year since I've been here at Atlanta. She has really welcomed me. And it's funny, you'll hear her talk about this side of her personality in this episode. But Kylie is really a consultant, an advisor, and an image maker, I would say, for women in business, whether they own their own business or it's in the corporate environment. So in this episode, Kylie and I talk about image, how important of a role that it plays, whether we want to believe that or not, and the advice that she has for women to really show up powerfully. So in this episode, what you'll hear is, well, one, why you should keep your day job until you figure out your business. Also, how your personal brand represents you, how to always show up as your best self in the office and in your life, the key question to ask yourself to determine the core values for your brand, also, why your personal style matters and how it plays into your performance. And Kylie has some studies about that. Also, the importance of staying present and keeping your head up. And smart ways to connect with new clients, including some savvy social media hacks that we both talk about that we've experimented with. So I know you're going to love this episode. Kylie's a fantastic person. I was so happy to chat with her. So without further ado, Kylie Carr. So Kylie, thank you so much for joining us on Support is Sexy. I'm excited to have you here.
I am so excited to be here, Elaine.
Yay! So happy we're doing this. So first question, when did you first fall in love with entrepreneurship?
Well, it's hard to say when I first fell in love with entrepreneurship. But if I go back to just being a child, I know when I was 5 years old and people would say, what do you want to be when you grow up? I would say a doctor, a hairdresser, and an oil painter on the side. So I think back then I was multi-passionate, and I knew that being in one job wouldn't be enough for me. And even going into college, I started like a nail design business. It didn't go very far, but I did have Nails by Kylie. And then when I got to grad school, I knew that entrepreneurship would be one of my majors in business school.
What was the thing that let you know that that was it once you got to grad school?
That is a really good question. I think it was just something that was in me. It was something that was in me that I saw for myself, and it wasn't necessarily intellectually pulling me. It wasn't like I said, you know what, it makes sense for me to go into entrepreneurship, but it was more like it was drawing me to it. So I knew that was probably in my future. So at least having some tools and some education behind me could hopefully prepare me for whatever that looked like in the future.
Now, where did you go to grad school?
I went to the Kellogg School at Northwestern.
Oh, Northwestern. Okay. So that's interesting that I know now they have, a lot of schools have entrepreneurship and different kind of courses that students could actually take. So what kind of things were you taking, actual entrepreneurship courses or things that you thought would be helpful to you as an entrepreneur when you were there?
So both. Luckily, a lot of the classes at Kellogg were, they counted for many majors. Mm-hmm. So I ended up with 3 majors. I ended up with media management, marketing, and entrepreneurship and innovation. And the specific entrepreneurship classes, some of the ones I took were entrepreneurial finance, which was one of my favorite classes. Also, we had like a business plan course. So each group we worked in groups. A lot of Kellogg, we were working groups. So we worked in groups to develop a business plan around an idea. So that was great. And then we had to pitch that idea. So that was one of the most helpful courses that I remember at Kellogg.
Excellent. Now, where did you grow up? Did you grow up in the Midwest?
No, well, kind of. So I'm kind of a nomad. I'm originally from South Jersey, so right outside of Philadelphia.
I didn't know that.
Yes, both of my parents were from Philly.
Okay.
And although I didn't live there for most of my life, so I've lived in, I think, 9 different states. So we moved to upstate New York, and then we moved back to Jersey. And from there, my mom started working. We actually left Jersey to move to the DC area when my mom started working for McDonald's Corporation. So she was working for HR for them, and every 2 to 3 years, we would move to a different region. She'd get a promotion, relocation, and we finally ended up in the Chicago area when I was in 8th grade, which is where their headquarters is. So we stayed there, and then I left for college. I went to Atlanta to go to college at Emory after graduating from high school in the Chicago area.
I figured the Midwest, but I had no idea you were from the Northeast like me.
Yes.
I love it. I love you even more now.
Yes.
So with moving around, how did that, if in any way, do you think affect you growing up?
It affected me a lot. Looking back, I think that I'm really good at adapting to different environments because of moving around a lot. I haven't even counted how many schools that I've gone to. I went to at least 3 or 4 elementary schools.
Wow.
So, going to a different school, being the new girl, I had to quickly figure out how to fit in. So by the time I got to high school, I was the one when we had new people come to school, especially if they were Black females like me, I would be like the welcoming committee. I remember one of my good girlfriends, Wynisha, she came to our school as a senior in high school. And I found out that her mom also worked for McDonald's. So I was like, oh, this is going to be my friend. So first day of school, I'm like, let me tell you, this is where you need to go. Let me introduce you to people. And she was not happy being there. And she even joked at my rehearsal dinner for my wedding that, she was resistant to being my friend, but I made sure she was going to be I was going to be her friend.
You're like, I got my eyes on you.
Exactly. Because I knew how it felt to be the girl. And I wanted to make sure that I helped other people with that transition because I knew what it felt like.
I can totally see you doing that, knowing you now and your personality. I could see you being the welcoming committee, even if the person's like, I'm okay. It's okay.
Right. She's like, no, I'm good. I'm like, no, you are going to be my friend. And 20 so years later, we are still great friends.
That's so funny. What do you think were some of your greatest influences growing up?
Number one, my mom. My mom was just such a wonderful person. And it was great just growing up with someone who was such a strong role model. So not only was she a fantastic and a successful business person, but she made a career transition too. She was a teacher up until I was born, and then made a transition to corporate America when I was very young. She got her master's degree and then moved up in the corporate ranks. So I was able to see someone stay true to who she was, but become successful and also make some sacrifices for her family. My parents got divorced when I was very young, and my brother and I lived with my mom for the most part. So seeing, especially now, being a mother, I am truly understanding the sacrifices that she made. But even more than that, in her accomplishments from a business perspective, she was just a great person. We would often have people come to the house to share what they were going through. I remember a guy coming to the house when I was maybe 14 years old, and he and my mom being in the back for hours, and I could tell it was an intense conversation. And come to find out, this was a guy who was friends with my mother from work, who decided who came out as transgender. He was married, had 2 sons. So he confided in my mom because it was a really difficult decision for him to reveal this about himself. And professionally and personally, he was going through a lot of turmoil. So that was the type of person that my mom was. She was the one who would help people through those things, but also the one who would give so much to other people as well. So I just had a great role model in her, and that certainly influenced the person that I became.
It's interesting to hear you talk about your mom and who she was, and she sounds like an amazing woman, excuse me. And but then to know the kind of work you do today with helping women sort of step into their own power and be who they're really meant to be and be true leaders. It seems like it's a reflection of just how you grew up and who your influence was.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely.
Excellent. So when you were at Northwestern and studying entrepreneurship, did you know what kind of business that you wanted to go into at that time?
I didn't, although I suspected that it would be something related to media and entertainment. That was one of the reasons why I selected Kellogg, is because they were one of few business school programs that had a media management program. So at one point before business school, I thought that I was going to be in the music industry or maybe a casting director in television and film. And when I started in business school, it was 2005. And that was really the beginnings of digital media as we know it today. I mean, Facebook wasn't even really a thing. Mm-hmm. So I started my first blog in 2005 and quickly fell in love with digital media. So I didn't know what it looked like, but I figured that digital media and just media in general would be a part of my story, although I wasn't quite sure how. And actually, it was a part of my story. After my first job after leaving business school was working for a media company, a company that owned newspapers and television stations and quite a few digital entities. And I was in a marketing kind of leadership development program with them.
So what made you then make the transition to doing the kind of work that you do today with really empowering women?
Sure. So back in 2013, I was at a point where I was leading a marketing department. I still had this bug for entrepreneurship. And actually, even going back to 2008, I had a short stint with entrepreneurship. I had left my company, decided with my best friend to start a company. And, she was working full time. I decided to leave my company in Dallas and move to New York where my now husband, then boyfriend was, mm-hmm. and figure out what we were going to start. Not a good approach. Not a good approach, people. If you're working and you want to start something, try to figure out what you want to do before you leave your job.
Start it while you're there.
Start it while you're there.
Amen, sister.
So we spent probably about 8 months figuring that out. We shot some web series and started a blog and a digital magazine. And then I realized that my savings was going to be dried up. So ended up going back into industry, kept doing that on the side for a while, and then was being promoted and ended up having such a robust job that I just didn't have the time to do anything on the side anymore. So fast forward to 2013, I was leading a marketing department for a tech company, and my mom unfortunately was ill. She had cancer and was dying from cancer. I was planning my wedding. I was so not into the job, was not my priority at that time. And my company actually said that they wanted to move my department from Chicago, where I was living, to Philadelphia. And they said, we know what's going on with your mom. We'll wait until she gets better. And I at that point said, you know what? I think I want to focus on family right now. And I decided to leave. So my last day was on a Friday, and my mom passed away the next business day, that Monday. And it was a tough situation. I mean, I'd been taking care of her for the previous year and a half. And but the blessing in that was that I didn't have to grieve while working at a job that I wasn't invested in, like mentally invested in. And I was also able to take that time to grieve and to figure out what my next move was. And it wasn't even in my in a realm of possibility, honestly, for me to go back to corporate. Even though I've been very successful in it, I realized, for this phase of my career, I want to do something entrepreneurial. And I realized that there were many things that helped and hindered women in advancing in their careers. And a lot of those things are not talked about in performance reviews. They're not talked about in the classroom. And they were really related to things that people would come to me for. So things like, how to show up as your best self, how to dress well for work, how to fit it into a corporate culture, but not lose who you are. Developing relationships, developing your reputation and personal brand. And I realized that was what I was meant to give this phase of my career to when I started my business from there.
Excellent. So now, how do you incorporate style and leadership training into your business today? You mentioned some of the women or your clients ask or wonder about things such as how do you show up? How do you present your best self? And I know style is something that's important to what you do as much as leadership training and that kind of thing.
Yeah, so the three main areas that I work with clients in are their image, their executive presence, and their personal brands. And there's some overlap with all of those things. And I should say with personal branding, it also includes your digital presence. So when it comes to style, and I really tell my clients, I want to help you show up as your best self online and in the office. Mm-hmm. So in the office, when it comes to your personal style, I really work with clients to understand who they are at their core. What do they want their personal brand to represent? And that starts from a place of what is theirs? What are those qualities that are theirs? What are their personal brand attributes? What is the way that they want to show up when they meet somebody for the first time? Because we only get 7 seconds to make a first impression and really only 250 milliseconds to show how trustworthy and competent we are. So without any other information, how we show up is all we have. So I help some of my clients make sure that there is alignment between the quality of their work and what they can contribute to someone or an organization and how they show up in person.
So for all of our sexy listeners who are listening to you right now and who want to know how to make a great impression in that first 7 seconds, what would you say is something that, if there is one thing that you could say, is something that we should make sure that we do in that 7 seconds or be in that 7 seconds?
Yeah, one of the things is to be aware and be intentional. So oftentimes when we meet someone for the first time, we're not thinking about it, right? We're just extending our hand. Let's say we're meeting a client or a colleague for the first time. We extend our hand to shake their hand, but it's subconscious. We're not even thinking about it. But what I think is a good approach to take is to think about, what is the most desirable outcome from this interaction? Now, when you know that you're meeting someone for the first time, obviously, if you're at a networking event and you don't know who you're going to meet, you may not know what that desired outcome is, but you may in general know, okay, I want to leave this event and be able to have met some people who can X, Y, and Z. But when you're meeting someone for the first time, if you can think about, okay, what is my desired outcome and how do I want to show up, then at least it's in your mind and you can be, you're more likely to show up in that way. So something as simple as shaking someone's hand confidently. Like we've all had those situations where somebody gave us a limp hand or a cold, sweaty hand.
Yes.
It's one of those things that's so simple, but we don't think about. So giving a confident, strong handshake, thinking about how you want to show up. What are those three things you want people to, or those three adjectives you want people to walk away with in terms of our impression, and making sure that how we present ourselves, how we behave, how we speak, how we, our voice, our behavior, and our appearance all align with those things.
And the women that you support aren't aren't only entrepreneurs. These are women who are in corporate America, right? Or are they mostly in corporate America?
Right. I would say mostly in corporate America, although I do have quite a few entrepreneur clients as well, some of which started in corporate and then started their businesses after that.
I'm curious, when you talk about personal brand with people, I know that's something that a lot of us are either supporting people with or talking about or thinking about ourselves even. When you ask the question of women, how do they want to show up in general, is it something that's difficult for them to answer? Is that a difficult question for some of them to answer?
Oftentimes it is because we don't think
Yes.
about that. We don't think about that. Like, when I say, and I modified how I ask the question now because for some people who say work in marketing or brand management, they get what a brand is. Or maybe, for some people who are a little bit more just naturally intentional about how they show up, they may at least have an idea. Excuse me, have an idea of what that looks like. But for most people, I say, okay, if I ask 10 people to describe you using 3 adjectives, what do you want them to say? And then I'm able to get closer to what their personal brand, how they really want to show up and what that represents for them.
That's a great thing for everyone listening to consider, the 3 adjectives you'd want people to say. Because I asked you that question because when I help people do their brand stories, when writing it out, it's the most difficult question. And it's always the first one I ask, of course, because that's how I am, is who are you? And people, they have more questions about my question than they do answers, which I know it's a very open-ended, but it makes people sort of, and you don't, what do you mean? How? You mean at work, at this? And I mean, nothing's wrong with having additional questions, but I notice it's the one that's usually the most, it's the longest journey for us to go through when I'm working with someone. And I enjoy doing it and getting them to the point where they can confidently say that. But I was just curious for you with asking that question, if it's something that you find women, it's not that it's difficult, but it takes a little bit of time to get to because maybe we just don't think about it.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Even though, as you are doing through your work, it plays such a role in how we present to the world and move through our businesses and our careers and that kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah. And do you feel like who we are or the adjectives even that we want to describe ourselves with, that it's fine for them to change over time?
Yeah, I think for the most part, I mean, that's a tough one. I doubt they will change drastically unless people are doing some self-work and realizing that they're getting even closer to who they are. So I think they change more so around discovering what we're about versus changing who we are, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to put you on the spot, Kylie. What would you say are your the 3 adjectives for you?
So for me, it's professional, stylish, and knowledgeable. Those are my top 3.
Very good. You already knew yours. Very good. To give that some thought on mine. That's great.
But I think one thing that I do encourage people to do is ask 10 people or just post it on Facebook. See what people say, and you'll be surprised, and it may help you modify your list too. So if I were to expand it, I may include some others, but I was really surprised by some of what people said, but also number one, it's a good ego boost. Like if you're worried, oh gosh, I don't know what people are going to say about me. Don't be worried. People are they'll more likely give you positive things than negative things. And you may say, oh, well, do I just want those positive things? You do, because you want to know how you show up the best. Mm-hmm. So they're going to tell you the best things. One of my favorite words that a friend of mine from business school said about me was glambitious. So that's probably number 4.
Nice. I love it. That's perfect for you. I love that. Now, what role does our personal style play in our confidence and in our ability to lead? Because style, as you mentioned, is one of your components that you focus on.
And I think people disregard this a lot because it seems so superficial and so surface. And to a certain extent it is, but research has shown that your wardrobe, your dress, what you put on can impact your performance. So for instance, there have been a few studies that show this, but one of my favorites is a study that they call the white coat study. So I think it was out of Northwestern University in 2012, and basically they did two experiments. And one, they had two groups. One group had on a white coat, a white lab coat, and another group could wear whatever they walked in with. And they asked both of the groups to take a test. They found that those who had the white lab coat on performed 50% better than those who just had their plain clothes on. So they thought, that's interesting. Let's try this again. So in the second experiment, they had three groups. One group that had the white lab coat, one group who had a white coat that they were told were painter's coats, but they were the exact same lab coat or the exact same coat as the lab coat. And then the third group could wear the clothes that they walked in with, but they could see a lab coat before taking the test. Again, they found that those who wore the white lab coat performed better. Now, there have been other studies as well, but what that shows us is that what we wear can impact how we perform. So it's more related to the perceptions we have about the clothes that we put on. So, I wish I would have known this in business school because I could have worn, my power suit going into my accounting and finance exams and probably would have had a better grade. Mm-hmm. But that is one way that our style and our wardrobe does influence and impact how we perform.
So with the lab coat study, do you think it was that people who participated associated a certain not level of importance, but I guess importance of the position or what they were doing because of what they were told the coat means? So the painter's coat, the lab coat versus wearing just your regular clothing?
Exactly. There was another study with people who wore suits or clothing that they would wear to an interview, and they found that those who wore those types of clothing, so a suit, for instance, or a professional dress for women, they were seen to be or they felt more powerful, more strategic, but they actually they didn't perform as well when it came to tasks, like task level things, mm-hmm. or tactical things, but strategic things, it was great. So yes, it has to do with the associations we have with the clothing that we wear.
It's so interesting to hear those kinds of studies too, though, in today's time with especially technology companies or companies that are creative and things like that. Not that corporate companies can't be creative, but environments, I should say, where people wear T-shirts and,
right.
sneakers and jeans and that kind of thing. And I'm wondering if it affects their performance in any way, or if it would affect their performance in any way if they were to dress a different way.
Yeah, and there are many factors when it comes to our dress. There is the performance piece, but there's also the perception piece, right? So if and fit. Now there's also a piece around pay. There is some correlation between, for instance, women who wear makeup and their pay. But
what's that one?
Very interesting. So essentially, women who wear makeup are, I think it's 30%, receive 30% more pay than women that don't. Yeah. I'm just sharing the facts. I'm sharing the data.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. So now too much is too much. So it's not to say that the more you wear, the more makeup you wear, the more money you get. Exactly. Don't come in with a full beat.
But it's so interesting for women. I wonder if of course, you might not know this from the studies, but I wonder if things like makeup or wearing a dress or just very traditional ways of being in an office that would make women be in a position to make more and that kind of thing, as opposed to being able to wear what you want to wear. Of course, still professional, but, or not wearing makeup. That's so.
Yeah, it's very interesting information. Now, you do need to think about how when I talk to clients, I think I encourage them to I help them define what their personal brand is, what their personal style is like, so that that can shine through, but shine through within the context of the culture and environment they're in. Because that's not, I was just going to say that, for instance, if you are super professional and super conservative, but work in a tech company that's very casual, you can't expect to wear like a full suit to work, and it's going to work. Now, so that may mean that for women, for instance, maybe you're wearing dark jeans and, some polished flats and a blazer and a cute shirt. So you're still professional and stylish, but also a little bit more casual within the environment.
Mm-hmm. Right. So there's no one way to do it.
Exactly.
It's about your environment and really being true to yourself. I would imagine if I was a client who I do wear makeup, but if I were a client who doesn't wear makeup, and even knowing, what the studies and that kind of thing show, I know you help your clients just be really authentic to who they are.
Exactly. And maybe it's, maybe it's for some clients, it may be getting more comfortable with wearing a little bit of makeup. Maybe it's just some concealer, some mascara, and a lip color, like a, nude lip color, but still being more polished, coming across more polish without having the full beat face, which would not be comfortable for them.
Do you help your clients find outfits that are good for them as well? Is that part of your business?
Yes.
Or you do?
Yeah, I have some clients where I will do VIP shopping days. Mm-hmm. So we'll spend a day either in their city or mine and get their seasonal wardrobe together.
That's great. And I think for people listening, just to know that, one, if that's something that's available, if that's something that you need, help with your wardrobe, and then to know that, and Kylie, you let me know what you think. It doesn't mean that you don't know how to shop or you don't have style or that kind of thing. It's just for some women, it's because they don't want to have to think about it. Yes. I would imagine, especially higher up corporate women. And then for other women, it is getting something that they feel comfortable with and by working with a professional. So I wanted to mention that because I think sometimes people think, oh, well, I don't need someone. I know what I want to buy and that kind of thing. It's just there are different reasons to bring someone like you in to work with you on your wardrobe and that kind of thing.
Exactly. A lot of time it's just about time.
Right.
So I could do it, but do I want to take the time to figure out where to go, what's going to work for me, and all of that.
Mm-hmm. Now, you recently shared a story where you were reminded that being kind of heads down and focused on work is something that can sometimes keep us from opportunities. I was curious if you'd be open to sharing that with us, and just how we as ambitious women, corporate women, career women, entrepreneurs can sometimes get really stuck in or really deep focused on what we're doing and kind of miss out on what's going on around us.
Yeah. So earlier this week, I was at the place where I work out of. It's partially a co-working space, and I've been there for, I guess, maybe 10 months now. And I was about to start a meeting, and I went to grab some water, and there was a gentleman next to me who was also getting some water. And he basically, he said, he didn't even introduce himself. He said, "Hi, how are you doing?" I said, "Oh, I'm fine. How are you?" And he said, I've seen you here for 6 months, and this is the first time, or the most I've heard you talk." And I didn't recognize this guy. I don't remember seeing him at all before that day, but apparently he had seen me. I had been there for more than 6 months. And I said, usually when I'm here, I'm just so in the zone and heads down. And he said, just because you're in the zone doesn't mean that you can't have human interaction. Mm-hmm. And, take that 30 seconds to have human interaction because it's good for the soul. And I was like, okay, well, all right.
I just want some water. Leave me alone.
I was just trying to get some water. That's all I was trying to do. And I just said, duly noted. So he asked me what type of work I did. I asked him what type of work he did. And he said that he does basically business ghostwriting or ghostwriting for business books. And I said, that's interesting. In 2018, I have writing a book on my list, and it probably would be a business type book. And he said, see what happens when you take some time out and have some human interaction. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, this is a good reminder to not get so heads down that you miss out on opportunities. And what I shared on Facebook is that I am I'm an extrovert. I'm a true extrovert. I get my energy from people, and oftentimes as an entrepreneur, we don't have a place that we go into if we're quote unquote solopreneurs. We may not have a team that we're going into an office to connect with every day. So things like, even talking about what happened in Las Vegas with your coworkers, we miss out on some of that human interaction when we're building a business and working by ourselves. So I realized in that exchange that I need to take the time out to be more intentional about having those connections. And even if it's planning more time with my girlfriends to have brunch, have a drink after work, or being more open to connect with people at my co-working space to spark up conversations with them, because you never know what will happen.
Mm-hmm. That was such a great reminder. Thank you for sharing that. That's why I wanted to ask you about it, because I do think so many of us can get heads down, even if we're around other people. Like you were in a co-working space. Sometimes we say, oh, well, I have a home office, I don't really go out. But sometimes even if you go out, you're still isolated and so into your own thing.
Right. Absolutely.
How do you find working at a co-working space? Do you find that it's been good for you these past 10 months?
Yeah, it's been great for me. And this is the second co-working space that I've gone to since I've been in Atlanta. And this one, oddly enough and ironically, I selected this one because I felt like there would be more of a community. It's not your traditional co-working space. It's more of a membership club that has a co-working aspect to it. And I really like that the membership there is diverse. They have business people and entrepreneurs and politicians and folks in nonprofits. It was and just culturally and demographically, it's very diverse. So for me, it has been good to even be around that energy and that environment. And even, from a business perspective, I've been able to develop relationships, oddly enough, ironically enough.
Except for with that guy at first.
Right, exactly. With people there. And the funny thing is, and this was another thing that this interaction reminded me of, it's the other people coming up to me. And I did a workshop for a company in Atlanta last month from doing a free workshop at the co-working space. Someone attended and said, oh, I would love for you to come and deliver this, paid at my company. So it's definitely been good for me.
And the space is called The Gathering Spot, right? Is that the name of it? The Gathering Spot. Yes, in Atlanta, for those listening who might be in the area. I've been. Kylie was kind enough to have me for lunch. It was delicious, and the space is gorgeous. So we'll give them a shout out.
Yes. I love what they're doing there.
It's beautiful. And I just wish it was closer to me, but it's fine. I still love it.
Same here. I commute like 35, 40 minutes getting there every day.
Do you?
I do.
I didn't realize it was that far from you. Okay, now I feel guilty. Okay, all right, I got to buck up.
But my in-laws live close, and they watch my daughter, so that is convenient.
Like 15 minutes away from there, right?
5.
I knew. Okay, I was thinking, wait, I thought we talked and you were closer. That's what I think I was thinking. I thought you lived that. Okay, anyway, we're going off on a tangent. We love the place, but okay, wonderful. But I did want to, since you were mentioning it, ask you about that, because I know, like I go to cafes or different places just to be around other people who are working, and I'm looking into the idea of a co-working space, but wanted to hear from someone who's in that environment, just what the benefits of it can be if people are listening and thinking about that. And I know people too who just go to spaces for a short amount of time, even if they're not a full-time member, or get breather spaces. I was talking to someone about the other day, which is places you can rent by the hour. So there's a lot of opportunities to create the environment that works best for you.
Yes, I definitely recommend doing that, and also finding a place that you feel comfortable at, because the first co-working space that I went to, and this was I have a daughter who's a year and a half, and I was there while I was pregnant. I didn't feel connected with those people at all, and again, I was heads down in there, but I didn't even feel like I could connect with the people there. So make sure that wherever you select, you feel like you're at home there.
Mm-hmm. And what would you say, you mentioned about giving the free workshop, which is a brilliant idea, and then having someone come up to you. What would you say has been the key for you in getting your clients and the clients that you work with? How have you connected with most of them?
For most of them, it's been word of mouth. I'd say even now, I mean, in the beginning, it was like 100% word of mouth and referrals. Now it's, I'd say about 80% with my podcast, with doing some of these workshops, then they get exposure to me there. But for the most part, it's people who know me, know the work that I'm doing, or have worked with me, have referred me to other people. So I encourage entrepreneurs, especially when they're getting started, to talk about what you're doing. Sometimes we get timid to share, even through our personal network. So Facebook has been amazing for me. Like, not even my business page, but my personal page. In the beginning, my first paid speaking engagement my first paid workshop came from a friend from high school who I hadn't seen in I don't know how many years, because I talked about it on Facebook.
That is such a good point, Kylie, because it's interesting. In the past, I would say maybe 2 or 3 months, I recently began, to speak from a social media standpoint for a second, recently began posting Support is Sexy podcast episodes on my personal Facebook page, where I have, I don't know how many friends, but most people I actually know. And it has received so much more engagement than the things that I post on my business page, which has however many followers. And I was speaking to someone who works in social media recently, and they were saying because business page is now on Facebook, not to get too deep into that, but they don't, unless you pay for them to be in front of people don't see it, only if they go to your page, that kind of thing. But also, to your point about your high school friend speaking to you about an opportunity on my Facebook page, my personal one too, people are not even just seeing it more, but more engaged with it because they have a connection to you. They want to see what you're doing. And at first, I'm mentioning all this for people as your point. Sometimes we think, oh, I don't want to, show this off or that kind of thing, or play timid with it. And I, at first, was like, I don't want to post this on my personal page because it's so much about business. But hey, this is what I'm up to. I invest a lot of time in this. This is important. And then who knows what can come from that. And I've received so many messages and things from people that I either know, or at least they're connected in some way around my business, which is what is very important right now.
Right. And they know you. Mm-hmm. You have a great reputation with them. So sometimes we forget how much people want to support us.
Yes.
So we don't want to, talk, just like you said, like, I don't want to talk about my business because this is my personal page, but your network wants to support you. So, and just talking about what you're doing, I think is a better tactic, if you will, than going to people asking for business.
Mm-hmm. Right. Sharing.
You don't have to. Yeah, you don't have to ask for business. If you're just sharing the great work that you're doing, people will recognize that and want to support you.
I think too, sometimes we fall into, and I've done this, you think, oh, well, I'm putting so much out, on your business pages or wherever, your podcast and that kind of thing, and people know what I'm doing. I've had people, even people that I know who are now recently in the past couple months are seeing all of the episode posts for the podcast. Like, oh, what are you up to? I didn't know you were doing this, or I didn't know this was still, you're like, what do you mean? I worked so hard on this,
Right.
It's like, how could you, but people are living,
could you not know?
How could you not know what I'm doing? Right. But people are living that just like all of us. I see things all the time on social media. I'm like, oh, I didn't know. What are you doing? Come on my show. That's how you kind of connect with people. So that is a great, I'm so happy you mentioned that. one of the things too that, and not to, again, to stay too close to social media, but even on Twitter, on my personal page, I began posting more consistently about the podcast and just in general things, women in business. And I've seen so much more engagement there. So we're saying all this to say, don't be afraid to talk about the things that really matter to you and show the world what you're up to.
Exactly. LinkedIn too.
LinkedIn. I have to get better on LinkedIn.
I do too, and I've seen some great results from LinkedIn. However, it comes down to time. So that's for 2018. I'm going to double down a lot more on LinkedIn, not on LinkedIn ads, but on LinkedIn content. Because the great thing, and I think I mentioned this to you before, the great thing about LinkedIn articles is that when someone in your network interacts with a LinkedIn article that you write, then everybody in their network sees that too. So if they like, share, or comment, then people in their network will see that they're more likely to see your content as well. So I've seen the same post that I'll post on my website will get, 4 times as many views on LinkedIn. And if you're so lucky as to post something that's very relevant, then LinkedIn may pick it up and put it in one of their featured categories. And I've had that happen before.
And you post it as an article. You're not, just so people know the distinction, you're not just sharing it.
Exactly. Not just sharing, you can share a link and some text with that link like Twitter or Facebook. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about actually writing an article on there. So I think it's a great alternative to having a website or having a blog for people who are interested in maybe putting out some thought leadership or some perspective or point of view, but don't want to invest all of the time in creating their own website. But even for those of us who are content creators, getting more reach for the content that we create, especially if our target audience is someone who's related to business.
I think, yes, I remember now. That was something we chatted about in the Support is Sexy Mastermind, right? I was asking you about posts. Yes. And now that you mentioned about other people seeing the work, I remember thinking, oh, that's right. Once you post something and then someone likes it, I guess their algorithm works that more people will see it.
Exactly.
Yes, excellent. So many ways, ladies, listening, to get your work out there, just creating the time, right? Finding the time to make it work and finding what works for you. Of course, all the things we're mentioning, you don't have to do everything, but there are ways to get out. I think the thing we're both saying is don't play small.
Right.
Get out there and tell people what you're up to.
Exactly.
Let's take a quick break to thank our sponsor. So as a solopreneur, the last thing you want to worry about is getting paid and tracking people down for payment. So I was so excited to talk to Acuity Scheduling customer happiness specialist, Kristen Barber, who told me about Acuity's payment options for working with clients. This was something that I didn't know Acuity had, even though I've been working with the company for a year. So Kristen explains to us the easy ways that you can use the different payment options so you can get paid and focus on handling your business.
So depending on what your needs are, we've got a few different ways to go. We've got 5 different payment processors, and 3 of them have a lot of flexibility that kind of give you a wide range of options. So you can either have your clients pay upfront 100% of the price, end of story. You can have them pay a deposit, either a percentage or a dollar amount of what the appointment cost is. You can also, for 3 of the 5 processors, just have them enter in a valid credit card, but not charge them right off the bat. So those are really easy ways to kind of just cover your bases and make sure that you're not going to be out any money. You can set up cancellation policies, but it's just a really nice way to kind of get that extra security measure in there and to avoid those awkward conversations about whether or not Nancy owes you that money. You can just take care of it without even talking to her. You're good to go. As entrepreneurs and as business owners, obviously getting paid is super important. So if we can kind of take all of that off of your shoulders, then A, you're getting paid, which is what you deserve. And B, it kind of also adds another professional element to your site where you don't need to call, you don't need to send them anything. You're not waiting on them to get it together. You can just take care of business and it all just works really smoothly.
I love it and I can't wait to try it. Now, because you're a Support is Sexy listener, Acuity Scheduling is offering you 45 days free on any plan. So you'll also have a chance to try those payment options. Go to acuityscheduling.com/sexy to sign up for your 45 days for free. That's ACUITY scheduling.com/sexy.
We'll be keeping an eye out for you sexy ladies.
And now, back to the show. What would you say, Kylie, entrepreneurship has taught you about yourself as a woman?
That's a great question. I don't know if, I'm not quite sure if there's something specific that entrepreneurship has taught me about myself, particularly as a woman. But as a leader of my business, I'm able to better understand my clients, and my clients are typically busy women executives. So I can talk their language and I can understand how important their time is, as well as the importance of having people on your team who have the expertise to make your life easier and make you look better. Mm-hmm. So I've learned a lot about how to serve my clients because now I am like them. I am an executive of my own organization. So I see how valuable my time is and how important it is to have the right resources and people around me in order to help me be a better person.
What does your support network look like within your business, especially?
So my support network is great. I would say in terms of just my support people, I have formal and informal accountability partners. So I have two friends who I meet with individually every other week. And I have one of them we've been meeting for the past 3 years, another one for the past year and a half, and we keep each other accountable. I have also other, I would say, informal accountability partners who we are entrepreneurs, many of whom worked in corporate America or worked in business before going out on our own. And I consider you in that category, Elaine.
Yay!
And these are people who every time I talk to them, we are able to share knowledge and support each other and encourage each other because it's really hard. It's hard. It's difficult having your own business. It is not for the faint of heart. Mm-hmm. So, and then internally, I do have an assistant, a part-time assistant who I work with. And then for different projects, I may hire people in to work on, to help me execute different projects that I'm working on.
Excellent. So in closing, Kylie, if you think over your life and career and you had the chance to thank only one person whose support was critical to you personally or professionally, who would that be and what would you say?
I hate to be redundant, but I would definitely say my mom. She, as I mentioned, she was a very successful woman in business, but she also got her PhD and started her own business after leaving corporate America. So she wasn't able to see me do what I'm doing today. And I know if she were still alive, we would likely be collaborating on together. A lot of what I do is certainly aligned and overlapped with some of the work that she did. So I would just say thank you for being such an excellent role model and such a great contributor to this world and helping and influencing me to be a better person myself. So as I look to the future, I want to make her proud. And I want to live the legacy that she wasn't able to fulfill, leaving this earth at 68 years old. There was so much more that she could have accomplished. So if I can be some of the influence to my daughter that she was to me, then I will be doing my job.
I'm sure you're making her proud. She sees you.
I believe that. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Now, before you tell us how we can support you, I want to talk about your podcast, Beyond the Business Suit.
Thank you.
Which I'm going to be on soon. Yay!
Yes.
So tell
Cannot
everybody.
wait.
Yeah.
Yes.
So tell us about the podcast and what made you decide to start it and how that's been for you and your business as well.
Sure. So my podcast is Beyond the Business Suit, and we seek to uncover the secret weapons of successful women, and I give women the tools they need to have a life and career they deserve. And I'm just celebrated 3 years. I launched in 2014, and the reason why I started was because as I mentioned earlier, I just love media. And I wanted to leverage media in my business as a way to build community. And I saw this as an opportunity to highlight some of the amazing accomplishments that so many women have out there. We all have our own stories. We all have ways that we have contributed to the world personally and professionally. And I wanted to create this podcast as a way to help inspire others through other people's stories, in addition to using it as a way to help people, and my listeners are typically women, grow and develop on their own. So like you, a lot of my interviews or episodes are interviews. And then there's some that are just me sharing some knowledge and information to help grow and inspire my audience. I'd say a lot of my audience are professional women, ambitious women who are either in corporate America or entrepreneurs who are looking to have who have a lot of ambition in their lives. So I love being able to connect with so many fantastic people, mostly women, although I just had my third male interview. Mm-hmm. Some men too, because sometimes we forget we can learn a lot from men.
Absolutely.
So yes, we just on the day that we're recording this, I'm launching our season 2. Season 1 is like 110 episodes, but season 2 is launching today. So I'm really excited about this season and highlighting some fantastic people, including Elaine Fluker.
Yay! So excited. Can't wait. And of course, I will share it everywhere, including on my personal Facebook page.
Thank you.
Excellent. So how is the podcast, and I want to be conscious of your time, but I want to ask you, how has the podcast been something that's been a great tool, if you will, for you in your business?
I think it has helped me to gain credibility for people who don't know me. So, and sometimes I forget this because I've been doing it for so long that I forget to, sometimes when I'm in a workshop, and I'm at a corporate workshop and I'm teaching people about personal branding, I have to remind myself to tell people that I do have this podcast because I'm in a different mode. Sometimes it's just it's so fun for me. It's
right.
So fun. But in terms of how it's impacted my business, I think it's helped with credibility. It's helped for me to grow my audience and reach people who I would have never been able to reach otherwise. So it has just been a great vehicle, but it wasn't like an overnight success.
Right.
It takes a while to grow and nurture. In the beginning, it was friends and family. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget the first time I was emceeing an event and a woman came up to me and said, "Oh, I just had to come and say hi to you. I am such a big fan of yours. I listened to your podcast." And I was like, "What?"
Right. It's always strange. Exactly.
And I don't know who you are.
Right. You're not my cousin. Exactly.
Right. We're not related. So that inspires me to keep going because, as you probably experience, we create these episodes and we're speaking to the microphone and we don't know if anybody's listening. We see the statistics. Yeah, we see the downloads, but we don't know, we're not seeing the people in their showers listening to our episodes or in their cars or walking, to their jobs. And it's just so great to be reminded of the power and impact of the content that we're creating and how it's influencing and inspiring people.
And for you, it ties back into your love of media as well.
Right. Absolutely.
Excellent. So tell everyone now where they can find you and your podcast and everything that you're up to, social media. And of course, I'll have links to everything.
Sure, thank you. So I can be found on social media. I'm at Kylie Carr, KaileiCarr, on Twitter, excuse me, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I'm also at KailieCarr.com, and my podcast is at BeyondTheBusinessSuit.com. And obviously, wherever you find your podcasts.
Excellent. Kylie, thank you so much. Again, I'm so happy we could make this happen. I can't wait to see you again, maybe at the gathering spot.
Yes. Thank you so much, Elaine. I love what you're doing. You're such an inspiration, and I'm so excited to see what the future holds for you.
Thank you. And I'm excited. I'm going to say it here so that we have it on record. I'm excited to see Kylie on TV. I'm nudging her to do some more. I'm putting you on blast. I'm nudging her publicly to do some more or some period television. So we're going to put that out there. I believe that's in the works for Kylie, in the cards, I should say.
Thank you, Elaine. From your mouth to God's ear.
Exactly. Sometimes somebody has to say it.
Yes. No, I appreciate the accountability, the encouragement, and kick in the pants that we all need sometimes to do what we're supposed to be doing.
That's right. Excellent. Now, before you go, Kylie, what's a parting piece of advice from you to our listeners about anything?
What I would say is to make sure that you're showing up as the best version of yourself. And again, without any other information, all people see is all they have. So make sure that you are aligning how you show up in person and online with who you are at your core, especially as an entrepreneur. Sometimes when we're getting started, we don't have a lot of resources. So we think, oh, I can't have a fancy website, or I can't do this, I can't do that. You have a lot of resources available that are inexpensive to help you show up as the best version of yourself. So be intentional about doing that, and I believe you will go far.
Excellent. Kylie Carr, hold on just a second.
Thank you.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Kylie. Kylie, thank you so much for being here and for being you. It was such a pleasure to chat with you as always. So everyone listening, make sure that to get in touch with Kylie and to find out what she's up to, find out about her podcast, Beyond the Business Suit, and more about her, go to supportissexypodcast.com and just search Kylie, Kailei, and her show notes page will pop up with all of the links and the resources and the ways to get in touch with her. Supportissexypodcast.com and search Kylie. All right. So thank you all so much for listening. Again, I appreciate you. If you have not already, please make sure that you are subscribed to the podcast, whatever platform you're listening on. Go ahead and subscribe so that you don't miss a thing. We're here for you 5 days a week. We're doing our thing. I almost said making it happen, but I'm not saying that anymore. We're doing our thing, putting out the best work possible, interviewing women all around the world. I want to make sure as many of you hear their stories and are inspired by their stories as possible. So please make sure that you subscribe. All right. Again, thank you so much for being here, for listening, for tuning in, for giving me your feedback in all the ways that you do that. I appreciate you. And until next time, you know what to do. Go out there and create something sexy. And I'll talk to you soon. Take care.